Ben's assistant replaced our photo with one of their own. I became the laughingstock of the entire wedding. Ben defended her, saying it was just a joke. I had given him 3 chances before. This was the last one. I chuckled and said, "All right, then no wedding." Ben and I met back in middle school. It's been 13 years now, and after 7 years of dating, he finally proposed. It was a romantic night with fireworks lighting up the sky, beautiful enough to leave anyone in awe. Ben knelt down beside a creek, the fireworks casting a soft glow on his handsome face. "Spring, can I be your family?" he asked. I was overwhelmed with tears. I had waited 7 long years to hear this, so I put great effort into our wedding, taking 2 weeks off to plan everything meticulously, designing my dream wedding. But on the wedding day, the big screen didn't play the video I spent 3 nights editing. Instead, it showed photo after photo of him with his assistant, Grace, skiing in snowy mountains, surfing ocean waves, bungee jumping off cliffs. They had conquered one extreme sport after another together. Anyone who saw it would say they made a perfect couple. I had no family and few friends. Most of the guests were Ben's relatives and friends. Someone in the crowd was the first to break the silence, asking, "Isn't that woman not the bride?" That one question was like a stone thrown into a pond, causing a stir of whispers and gossip. Curious, gossipy, and mocking gazes were all directed at me. In my wedding dress, I stood bewildered in front of the big screen, searching for Ben in the crowd. He was standing with Grace, looking surprised. When our eyes met, he instinctively shielded her. I froze. That moment, something inside me quietly withered away. I met Ben in the 7th grade. With his family background, he shouldn't have transferred to an ordinary school in a small town. Later, he told me it was because he got into a fight, and his grandmother, who refused to move to the city, was asked to keep an eye on him since he always listened to her. Before Ben transferred, I had no friends. My name was Spring, and my role was to babysit my little brother. In 7th grade, I made plans to hang out with new classmates one Saturday. My mom ran into us on the street and got furious, hitting me on the spot. She yelled at my friend, accusing her of leading me astray and not letting me stay home to look after my brother. My classmate was reduced to tears, and the next day, the story spread around school. After that, no one wanted to be friends with me. I sat alone in the corner of the classroom, like a moldy spot on the wall, avoided by everyone for fear of bad luck. But Ben swaggered over, tossed his backpack on my desk, and said, "I'm sitting here from now on. Nice to meet you, desk mate." He was fearless, acting like he could handle anything, no matter how big the sky fell. Before the high school entrance exams, I was miserable, knowing these were my final days at school. My parents had already planned to send me to work at a friend's shop to save money for my brother's house and wedding. Ben thought I was just stressed about the exams and tried every way to cheer me up. "Hey, you're the top student in the class. What's there to be anxious about?" he said. One day, I couldn't hold back and told him I wouldn't be able to continue studying. Ben was silent for a long time, then patted my head and grinned. "With me here, I'll make sure you keep studying." He begged his dad, promising to focus on his studies in exchange for my education freedom. The price? $70,000 paid to my parents. When I got my acceptance letter, I sincerely told him, "No matter what wrong you do in the future, I will forgive you." Ben brushed it off. "What nonsense are you talking about? I treat you so well." He went back to the city for high school, but it was right next to mine. He visited me constantly. His friends often teased us, making me blush and stammer, unsure of what to say. One time, as he was walking me back to the dorm, he suddenly asked, "What do you think about what they said?" I didn't understand at first. "What do you mean?" He got flustered, scratching his head like a nervous kid. "I'm so good to you. What do you think it means?" I shyly mumbled, "I'm only good to you, too." "What?" I felt embarrassed and quickened my pace. "Let's talk about it after graduation." Ben caught up, laughing joyfully. "You said it. You can't be good to anyone else." After the college entrance exams, we naturally started dating. Even though he went abroad for his studies, he flew back to see me whenever he could. In 4 years, he saved up a thick stack of plane tickets. My college roommates used to say that we made them believe in love. After graduation, Ben returned to the US, and we dated like any normal couple. For 3 years, I basked in happiness, until Grace appeared. Grace was Ben's newly hired assistant. The first time I saw her was one night when Ben came back from a business event. A bit tipsy, leaning on her for support. Grace was beautiful, with a doll-like face and big eyes, friendly and charming. She smiled at me and said, "Hello, Miss Spring." Mr. Ben had a bit too much to drink, so I brought him home. Ben hadn't drunk this much in a long time. I was filled with worry and quickly reached out to support him, but with his eyes closed, he brushed my hand away. Staring at my empty hand, I froze. Grace, his assistant, leaned in and whispered softly, "Mr. Ben, you're home now." Only then did he lazily open his eyes, collapsing into my arms, burying his head into my neck and shoulder. He mumbled affectionately, "Honey." The strange feeling that had suddenly risen within me was instantly dispelled. I turned to Grace and thanked her. "Thanks for bringing him back." "I'm Mr. Ben's assistant, it's my job," she replied with an embarrassed smile. "By the way, Spring, I just started working here. The previous assistant left in quite a rush, so I didn't get a chance to learn all of Mr. Ben's habits. Could I add you on WhatsApp? I might need to ask you some questions from time to time." With her hands pressed together in a pleading gesture, her sincerity was hard to refuse. I nodded and exchanged contact information with her. I helped Ben clean up a bit and changed him into his pajamas. The next morning, just as I finished making breakfast, he woke up and hugged me from behind. "Honey, you're the best," he whispered. Feeling shy, I gently pushed him away. "Why did you drink so much last night?" Ben sat down calmly and said, "Grace can't handle alcohol, so she had to cover for me." For a moment, my stirring hand paused, and a thought crossed my mind: if she can't drink, why take her to a business dinner? But in the end, I didn't ask. I never interfered with his work, and I trusted him. I didn't want my small bout of jealousy to lead to questioning him. Grace added me on WhatsApp and occasionally contacted me with questions like how many sugar cubes Ben puts in his coffee, or if there were any foods he avoids. They were very normal queries, making me feel that my suspicions that day were unfounded. This led me to feel a bit guilty, so I answered her questions sincerely. Until something happened on my birthday that made me sense that Ben's feelings toward Grace might not be so ordinary. That night, he came home early. As I blew out the candles, he sat across from me, looking a bit absent-minded. He kept glancing down at his phone from time to time. After I finished making my wish, he was staring intently at his phone as if faced with a huge problem. I couldn't help but ask, "Ben, what's wrong?" Ben abruptly stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. He seemed oblivious to the noise, grabbed his jacket, and rushed out. "Spring, something came up at the office. I need to go check." "You're in such a hurry, it must be serious, right?" I felt a wave of anxiety and tugged at his coat. "What happened? Should I come with you?" "No need." He didn't even look back as he pushed my hand away. He slammed the door shut without a single glance back at me. After he left, I stayed in the living room, worrying. I didn't want to disturb him, so I only sent a few messages asking if the issue had been resolved. The beautiful cake slowly melted as the clock ticked past 11, but he still hadn't replied. Was he really that busy? I opened WhatsApp, intending to ask Grace what had happened at the company, but accidentally clicked into her status updates. At 9 p.m., she had posted, "What a disaster. I wiped out while skiing." It was accompanied by a photo of her with a plaster cast, lying on a hospital bed. 9 p.m. was exactly when Ben had rushed out. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a hollow sensation in my chest, like something bad was about to happen. Just then, her status updated with a new photo showing a man's sleeve. The fabric was clearly high quality, and his wrist, resting on the bed's edge, wore a black watch that matched the one on my wrist. It was a pair watch Ben and I had bought together. In her post, Grace complained playfully, "He insists on staying even though I said he didn't need to." His stubbornness didn't change even after coming back to the States. It felt like a hammer struck my head. I was dizzy and disoriented. Had they known each other since abroad? Why didn't Ben tell me anything? I opened the chat window, intending to ask Grace directly but accidentally sent her a nudge instead. She immediately replied, "Sorry, Spring. I just found out tonight was your birthday. Are you okay alone? Don't worry. I'll remind Mr. Ben to hurry back." A few minutes later, another message came through. "Spring. He won't leave. Ben didn't come home until the next morning. I sat in the living room the entire night. When Ben opened the door, he was startled. Why are you sitting here?" I looked up, eyes bloodshot. "Where were you last night?" Ben walked over and knelt in front of me. "Didn't I tell you? There was an issue at the company. Of course. I went there." I spoke softly. "I added Grace on WhatsApp." His brow twitched, and the calm expression on his face started to crumble. The next second, he sighed, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender, trying to downplay it with a light-hearted tone. "I'm sorry, honey. I lied to you. Grace and I were college classmates. She helped me a lot while I was abroad, and now her family is still overseas. She fractured a bone last night and was alone at the hospital. I thought I should go check on her." "Then why didn't you tell me?" He gave a guilty smile. "I didn't want you to overthink it. The truth is, the only reason I overthink is because he hides things from me. Did you hire her as your assistant because of her capabilities, or because of your old friendship?" I emphasized the last 4 words. "Of course, because of her capabilities. I have no ulterior motives. Please trust me." He didn't realize it, but when he said this, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. I knew him too well. I could spot even his smallest guilty gestures. Ben had promised me 3 times no matter what he did. As long as I was still here, I would give him 3 chances and forgive him every time. So, I chose to ignore his guilty expression, pretending to be blind. I hugged him, feeling wronged. "Last night was my birthday. You promised to celebrate it with me every year. Don't leave me like that again." Ben's face relaxed into a smile. "Understood." But he didn't keep that promise. Half a month later, he left me again. We currently live in a large apartment he bought in the city center, not far from our company. When he first returned to the States, he insisted on driving me to and from work a few times, but the traffic was unbearable. I preferred my electric scooter. 15 minutes direct. After what happened on my birthday, he seemed to want to make it up to me and volunteered to pick me up after work. I didn't refuse. We both tried carefully to mend the invisible rift between us. He kept this up for half a month. That afternoon, he told me he had a business dinner and couldn't pick me up. When I received this message, I actually felt relieved, even though it was raining and I had to wear a raincoat to ride my scooter. It was better than the awkward silence we shared in the car. His attempts to make up for things only made me uncomfortable, as if he was constantly reminding me of his betrayal. I didn't want to be reminded that he once chose someone else over me. After work, my boss suddenly called me over. He had transferred here a month ago, quite different from the previous manager's humorous and lively style. He was more reserved and calm. We had jokingly counted before. He smiled fewer than 10 times a month, with the happiest being the day the office switched the afternoon tea from coffee to milk tea. Our company didn't have a habit of overtime, so I worried he might bring bad habits from his previous job. Instead, he asked, "Has your boyfriend been picking you up after work recently?" I didn't like discussing personal matters with colleagues, let alone with my direct superior. I replied tactfully, "This doesn't affect my work performance." He nodded and then turned his phone to show me a photo. It's just a coincidence, but I happen to be Ben's senior. I even went skiing with them. The sudden photo caught me off guard. I saw Ben and Grace, closely embraced, wearing matching ski outfits. Ben had a bright, carefree smile, the same confident look he had in his youth. The 2 of them looked unmistakably like a sweet couple. Then what am I? A joke? An overwhelming sadness washed over me, leaving me breathless. I gripped the photo tightly, my body trembling uncontrollably. Outside, the sky was dark and overcast, pressing down on me until I could barely stand. So, they had been this close behind my back, making my recent attempts to deceive myself seem utterly ridiculous. My boss, Jason, gave me a look filled with pity. They were pretty close in sophomore year. I always heard Ben had a girlfriend back home. I didn't expect it to be you. My voice was hoarse. Why tell me this? You could have pretended not to know anything. I've seen people who turn a blind eye when their friends cheat, forming an unspoken male alliance. Why couldn't he do the same? The dark eyes behind his glasses showed a hint of confusion. I warned Ben. What he's doing isn't right. When I didn't respond, he seemed a bit regretful, pressing his lips together. Maybe I shouldn't have told you. No. I appreciate it. Could you send me the photo? With a quick swipe of his finger, he sent it, adding without looking up, don't let this affect your work. As I waited for Ben to come home, I replayed our 4 years of university together, searching for any signs of his divided attention. The answer was yes, but I had never suspected it back then. I trusted him with all my heart. When Ben first went abroad, he would call me whenever he had a break, timing it perfectly with my class schedule. He could talk endlessly about even the smallest things. But at some point, our conversations started to dwindle. When he came back to visit, we'd sit face to face, struggling to keep a conversation going for even an hour. I felt a knot of anxiety then, wondering if our different experiences had driven a wedge between us, leaving us with fewer shared topics. Could we really go on like this? I voiced my concerns, but he calmly reassured me, saying, just being able to sit quietly together is the greatest happiness for me. Yet there were nights when I woke up to see him smiling at his phone. His face lit up with happiness. There was even one time when there was a shooting incident at his university. I saw the news notification while attending a morning class, and was so frightened that I slipped out to call him from the hallway. It was around 9 p.m. over there. But he didn't answer. I started imagining the worst, curling up in the corner, crying, and repeatedly dialing his number while simultaneously looking up how to quickly apply for a visa. An hour later, he finally picked up, sounding hoarse, saying he had just fallen asleep. He wasn't in any danger, and he hadn't told me because he didn't want me to worry. But after hanging up, I felt a sense of emptiness. In the beginning, he used to call me even if he got a tiny splash of oil while cooking. When did I stop being the person he shared everything with? I didn't even think about what the sound of running water in the background might have meant. Late at night, he pushed open the door. Our eyes met, and he seemed to sense something. He instinctively took a step back, and that small movement stabbed at my heart. He realized how strange his reaction was, then forced a casual smile. Why aren't you asleep yet? Who did you go to the event with today? Ben's expression turned annoyed. You're imagining things again. Am I overthinking it? Or are you guilty about something? I placed a printed photo on the table. His eyebrow twitched, and he snatched the photo. How did you get this? I wanted to laugh but couldn't. Does it matter? His first reaction was to question me, not explain. Ben rubbed his nose. It's just a group photo. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? If I took a photo hugging another guy like this in college, before I could finish, his face darkened, and he cut me off harshly. Impossible. His chest heaved violently. Just mentioning it made him this angry. Double standards at their peak. You care so much about me doing this. So why did you do it? Or were you already seeing her back then? Ben, now livid, shouted. What nonsense are you talking about? It's just a photo. Is it that serious? The shooting incident happened the day before. We were under a lot of pressure. She was comforting me, and we went skiing together. There were many people in the photo. I was just squeezed into a spot with someone I was close to. If you felt pressure, you could have talked to me. He didn't hesitate to retort. What's the point of talking to you? Could you come and see me? You're always busy. Busy with your studies. Busy with work. Busy making that little bit of money. Where do I rank in your life? Would you even care if I told you? I stared at him in shock, unable to believe these words were coming from his mouth. I thought he knew. I was working so hard for our future. I'm not like him. I don't have any fallback options. I had to push forward without stopping. I was always the first to arrive at the library and the last to leave. Every bit of my spare time was spent working part-time jobs. I needed to repay the $80,000 his father lent my family so I could stand beside him with dignity. Last year, I solemnly handed him the money. He accepted it, and I thought he understood that I was rebuilding my self-respect. Ben was stunned when he saw my tears, showing deep regret. I'm sorry. I pushed away his hand that reached for me. It felt like my heart was being squeezed by a fist. suffocating me. Just as the tense atmosphere in the living room was about to solidify, his phone rang. He hesitated and gave me a glance before stepping away to answer the call. I heard Grace's voice on the other end. My leg hurt so much. Ben's back froze for a moment. Then I heard him respond. Wait for me. He couldn't leave. I clutched my chest weakly and said, Ben, I'm not feeling well. If he had just turned to look at me, he would have seen how pale my face was. But he didn't. He stormed out without even grabbing an umbrella. We need to cool off. As soon as the door slammed shut, I collapsed onto the floor, racked with pain. My vision darkened. I felt death approaching, a sharp sense of crisis overwhelming me. I can't die here. I had clawed my way out of the quagmire of my family's problems. I had a good degree, a job I loved. I couldn't die here. Crawled over, grabbed my phone, and dialed emergency services. After stumbling through giving my address, I finally got confirmation. Tears streamed down my face as I lay on the ground. Dialing Ben's number. Please pick up. You said you would never leave me. I'm scared of being alone in the hospital. Each ring of pain echoed in my chest. But he never answered. Eventually, I gave up. Years of poor nutrition in high school, combined with the immense pressure of my studies, I fainted during an important exam. When I woke up in the hospital, my mom was there, but instead of showing concern, she scolded me for not having done the laundry for days. Stop pretending to be dead just to slack off. And when she heard about the medical bills, she sneaked out when the doctor wasn't looking. It was Ben who ended up covering all my medical expenses. He grumbled while placing that day's exam papers on my hospital bed. With me around, you don't need to worry about anything. Honestly, your parents are the worst. Even when you're sick, they made me bring you test papers. Are you made of adrenaline or something? Pushing yourself this hard? Here, drink this chicken soup the housekeeper made. It's packed with nutrients. And if you don't finish it, I'll be mad at you. He brought me 3 meals a day, practically turning the hospital into his second home. By the time I was discharged, I'd gained 5 pounds. Ben was very pleased, pinching my cheek and saying, my late-night study on the pig rearing guide didn't go to waste. Moved. Promised him. Ben, if you ever get hospitalized, I'll bring you food every day too. He teased me. Don't jinx me. I was so grateful for Ben's care, knowing his dad wanted him to take the IELTS. He kept procrastinating and refused to study, so I made time to help him prepare. In March, we took the test together. I scored an 8, and he got a 7. Exceeding his father's expectations. He was so excited that he picked me up and spun me around. You're my lucky charm. Being suddenly lifted, I clung to him, terrified. Ben blushed but kept holding me, trembling as well. We stood there under the tree, embracing for 5 minutes without saying a word, and it didn't feel awkward at all. That beautiful moment is still vivid in my mind. Tears streamed down my face, and I felt a cool touch wiping them away. When I opened my eyes, I was already back in the hospital. Ben's eyes were red. I'm sorry, Spring. I didn't realize you were really feeling unwell. I responded blankly. I told you. I said I wasn't feeling well. His tears fell immediately as he kept apologizing. After the doctors explained that my collapse was due to extreme emotional stress, Ben stayed with me at the hospital for a week, even moving his work into my room. I neither welcomed nor rejected his presence. Ignoring him completely, he seemed oblivious, continuing his efforts, persistently trying to comfort me. Even the nurses whispered to me, your boyfriend treats you so well. The day before I was discharged, Ben sat on the couch, suddenly pushing aside a mountain of documents in frustration. Ugh, I don't want to work anymore. In that moment, I heard echoes of a younger Ben throwing his exam papers aside, whining, Spring, I don't want to do practice questions anymore. My heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, I called his name. Ben. Ben, overwhelmed with excitement, rushed to my bedside. You're talking to me. He hugged me, repeatedly apologizing. I was so wrong. I shouldn't have kept things from you. I swear there's nothing between me and Grace. I don't like her. I only love you. I've already fired her and promise I'll never have any contact with her again. I shouldn't have doubted your love for me. How could I not know that you love me the most? Please forgive me. As he spoke, he began to cry. The way he looked at me, filled with love, wasn't fake. But can a person really love two people at the same time? When he hugged her as intimately as in the photos, did he truly feel nothing? I let him hold me tightly, whispering in his ear. This is the second time. What second time? He asked. Nothing, I said. I forgive you. Ben held my face, his eyes shimmering with light. Spring, I just want to be with you. No one is more important than you. The day after I was discharged, he proposed to me. I accepted. Strangely, when I took the ring, along with happiness, I also felt a flicker of doubt. Was his proposal sincere? Or was it driven by guilt and a need to make amends? When Grace showed up at our wedding, I realized that guilt doesn't last forever. I tore off my veil and walked towards Ben, step by step. What's going on? I asked. Ben replied. She said she wanted to see our wedding, so I sent her an invitation. The corners of Ben's mouth twitched, but he chose to stand between me and Grace, blocking my view of her. Don't be angry, Spring. She's just joking. Let's continue the wedding. Okay. How did Grace know about our wedding? Clearly, Ben had still been in contact with her behind my back. I didn't feel sad. Instead, I felt a sense of relief and liberation that it was finally over. I placed the veil I had carefully selected from 10 different bridal stores into Ben's hands and smiled. Go ahead. I'll leave the venue to you too. A flash of triumph crossed Grace's eyes, but she quickly masked it with tears, as if I had bullied her. Sister Spring, she said pitifully. Mr. Ben was worried the wedding might be dull, so I thought I'd bring some of our old photos to lighten the mood. She added tearfully, I didn't know it would upset you so much. Ben turned pale. Grace isn't like that. Don't joke about something as important as our wedding. I glared at him without a shred of mercy. Use your brain for once. Ben, if I had shown intimate photos with another guy at our wedding and brushed it off as a joke, would you accept it? People who do that are either brainless or shameless. And you? Taking advantage of their momentary distraction, I shoved past Ben and grabbed onto Grace's hair. Brainless and shameless. Do you have any idea how much effort I put into planning this wedding? You wretch. Grace let out a piercing scream as I slapped her hard across the face. Ben immediately pulled us apart, looking shocked. Spring, what are you doing? To everyone who knows me, I'm usually mild-tempered, almost to the point of being a pushover. I've never hit anyone, never even raised my voice, but that's only because no one had ever crossed my bottom line. I'm patient. I can tolerate a lot. They simply weren't worth my time. But my heart is small, and there's only room for a few people. Now, there's one less. I sneered. You're a disgrace too. With everyone staring at me in disbelief, I walked up to the big screen, took off the engagement ring, and spoke with a smile. Wish me luck. As of today, I'm single again because my ex-fiancé hooked up with his secretary and ruined my wedding. These two are a perfect match. Let's all wish them the best. I began clapping, and only a few scattered applause followed. From my tearful friends, I smiled at them, then casually tossed the ring aside and lifted my gown to walk toward the exit. Spring. Ben frantically bent down to pick up the ring, but I didn't look back. Each step I took was firm and resolute. When I got into the taxi, the driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror and handed me a pack of tissues. Here, sweetheart, wipe your tears. He wasn't worth it. It was only then that I realized I was crying. I wiped my tears and said, these are tears of joy. 4 years ago, I broke free bit by bit from the toxic grip of my past. Since then, the old me no longer existed, only Spring. And today, I've walked away from yet another toxic relationship. The process wasn't perfect, but the outcome was worth it. When Ben came home, I was packing the last of my belongings. Nearly everything in the apartment was bought by him, so I only took my clothes. He grabbed my suitcase, looking both confused and angry. Where are you going? You've already made a scene at the wedding, and now you're just going to run away. I looked at him calmly. Let go. Where can you go? This is your home. Don't worry about it. I've already rented a place. He widened his eyes. When did you do that? The day after my birthday. Without hesitation. After you left me that night to be with Grace at the hospital. I took the morning off. Found a place. Signed the lease by noon. And was back at work in the afternoon. I hadn't planned on telling him. Perhaps deep down, I knew this day would come. Ben was stunned, looking hurt and confused. Why? I glanced around the apartment where we had lived together for 3 years. I knew every corner intimately. The cozy living room, the spotless kitchen, the soft carpet. They were filled with my love and our memories. But this place no longer belonged to me. Ben's face turned pale, and he punched the wall in helpless anger. Just because of a joke. You're leaving me. The moment you instinctively protected her. That was your last chance. He didn't understand what I meant. He'd always loved making jokes, especially to lighten the mood. This time, he'd gone too far. Fine. If you don't want to see her again, I'll block her. Okay. Desperately, he pulled out his phone and showed me his chat with Grace, deleting everything while I watched. Just before he entered the apartment, they were still texting. Realizing the mess he was in, he gritted his teeth and blocked her in front of me, handing me his phone as if it were proof of his sincerity. Look, I deleted it all. I didn't take the phone, just shook my head. It's none of my business anymore. Ben, maybe you didn't understand what I said at that ridiculous wedding. Let me make it clear. We're done. Thankfully, we never made it official. The last sentence hit him like a punch. His eyes reddened, and he clung to my suitcase, refusing to let go. Spring, isn't this our home? Are you really going to leave me here alone? We survived 4 years of long distance during college. We promised we'd always be together. I didn't want to argue any longer. I pried his hands off my suitcase, accidentally pulling off his wristwatch. It fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. Be a decent person. Ben, stop making me remind you. You and Grace have been involved for a long time. I've already been made a fool once. I don't hate you, but I have no expectations left for you. I don't know when you'll leave me behind again or side with her like I'm the common enemy. But the worst part, even imagining you doing this in the future doesn't make me feel the slightest bit sad. I curled my lips into a sarcastic smile. What do you think that means? He understood instantly. It meant I no longer loved him. We were truly over. He released my hand. His eyes filled with desperation. I spent half a day cleaning up my new apartment. The next morning, I returned to work, looking refreshed. When I handed a report to Jason, his eyes flicked to my bare ring finger before quickly looking away. He spoke slowly. There's an opportunity for an overseas assignment next month. Our department has 2 slots, and I've recommended you. Take some time to think it over. An overseas assignment? I was taken aback by the sudden news. When did you decide to recommend me? Just last week, he said with a rare, almost fatherly smile. Close the door on your way out. And thanks for all your hard work. As I shut the door behind me, it felt surreal. Jason had never smiled at me before. When he noticed my missing ring, he hadn't said a word, just frowned slightly, as if thinking, what a waste of a good person. From that day on, he never smiled again. We jokingly called him the stone face behind his back. In my now stable life, Ben was the only lingering nuisance. He called me every day. I blocked number after number, but he wouldn't give up. When he couldn't reach me, he resorted to sending long, sentimental messages. I ignored them until, unable to restrain himself, he showed up outside my office with a massive bouquet, blocking my path. With a forced smile, he extended his hand. Spring, the watch has been repaired. This watch was the cheapest thing Ben owned, but it was the most expensive birthday gift I could afford during my college years. He wore it for 7 years. Once, a friend teased him about wearing such a cheap watch, and he had turned serious, saying, "This is the most precious thing I have." That friend never dared joke about it again. But he had worn that same watch while spending an entire night comforting Grace. I wondered if he had checked the time that night, thinking of me waiting alone. I scoffed. He means nothing to me anymore. And neither do you. I hopped on my electric scooter, leaving him standing there. Ben had always lived a charmed life, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His first real setbacks were all because of me. I didn't expect him to be so persistent. He even enlisted outside help. When I received a text from Grace, I couldn't help but laugh at the audacity. Where do they get the nerve? I decided to meet with her. curious to see what game they were playing. The moment she saw me, Grace hurried over, looking pitiful. Ben asked me to explain our situation. Spring, there's really nothing between us. He only helped me get into the company because we were classmates. And I've already resigned. I know my joke at the wedding was too much. I'm sorry. If you're willing to forgive me and Ben, I'll do whatever you ask. She even started sobbing, tears streaming down her face. Most men would probably be moved by her tears. But not me. Really? Even kneeling? I asked with a cold smile. Grace froze. After a long, uncomfortable silence, she forced herself to say, "If it means you'll forgive Ben, then yes, I will." "Enough." Spring. Came Ben's voice from the phone Grace had placed on the table. The moment I saw Grace's smug expression, I realized they were trying to manipulate me. I crossed my arms, unimpressed. "He said he'd do anything, didn't he?" I made one simple request. "And you're already upset? If there's no sincerity, why even bother meeting with me?" Grace sneered but quickly dropped to her knees. "Stop fighting because of me." "Fine. I'll kneel." Then she hung up the call. "You really think you've won?" I asked, mocking her. "Ben still can't let go of you." Grace's face lit up with a satisfied smile. "Why wouldn't he? You're just jealous." "Jealous? Why would I compete over a man I don't even want?" Her face twisted with anger. "Sour grapes. Huh, you can't have him. So you act like you don't want him." I chuckled. "If Ben cares about you so much, why did he force you to leave the company?" For a split second, her confident demeanor cracked. "Oh, didn't he tell you? He knows I've always loved fashion design. So he's helping me set up my own studio." My stomach sank. No wonder she was so smug. I had walked right into their trap. Her voice was dripping with condescension. "You didn't seriously think we were just friends, did you? Do you know what we were doing the night you called? Right when your parents showed up demanding money and even tried to kidnap you." I stood there, my heart hardening even further. Every word she spoke confirmed what I already knew. Ben and I were done. And this time, there was no turning back. "You should be grateful to me. If it weren't for how happy I made Ben, he wouldn't have felt guilty enough to rush back and save you right after our ski trip," Grace said with a sneer. "He even pitied you, saying, 'Oh, poor Spring. Even her family doesn't care about her.' It was utterly disgusting. That happened back in my junior year of college. After that incident, I made a decision. I took the household registration booklet and changed the name that had brought me nothing but bad luck for 21 years. I became Spring. Spring. Like the warmth of spring. I wanted to be the light in my own life. Ben was there with me, supporting me every step of the way. Or so I thought. Now, I realized that his so-called unconditional support was just a mask to cover up his guilt for betraying me. I clenched my fists, suppressing the nausea rising in my throat. "You two are revolting." Grace smirked. "And what right do you have to say that? Ben was overseas for years, but he still came back for you. Did you ever go see him? Did you even know he failed his exams? Faced racial discrimination? Got robbed? Every single time. I was the one by his side. What did you do? You wouldn't even buy a plane ticket. You just enjoyed the love he gave you." I looked over to where Ben was sitting, slumped in a corner, unsure how much he had overheard. "Is that how you see it too?" I asked, my voice cold. Grace followed my gaze, her face turning pale. Ben staggered over, trembling, as if he wanted to explain but couldn't find the words. I was genuinely baffled. "I just enjoyed your love? Is that all I ever did for you? Ben, did I really never do anything for you?" When he struggled with his studies, I stayed up all night watching online courses, organizing notes, and breaking everything down step by step for him. When he faced racism and I couldn't be there, I spent a week's worth of free time researching and writing a detailed guide on how to handle those situations. He was stuck on his thesis, and I revised every bit of it. Framework, terminology, the works. And yet, in his eyes, all I did was enjoy his love. I stared at him as if he were a stranger. "Ben, you're disgusting. How do you even deserve anything?" I didn't have a visa, had never been on a plane. The places he went were just pictures in books to me. When we started our long-distance relationship, I was full of anxiety. He told me, "No distance can lessen my love for you." Ben will always love spring. By his third year abroad, those promises were worthless. I guess promises only mean something when there's still love behind them. Once the love is gone, the promises are empty words. I let out a bitter laugh. You and Grace are perfect for each other. Be together. Why drag me into this mess? If you just told me you couldn't handle long distance anymore, that you didn't love me, that you wanted to break up, do you think I'd have clung to you? You really overestimate your importance and underestimate me. If you just said you couldn't resist sleeping with that trash, I would have left without a word. I turned on my heel and walked away. Staying any longer would have driven me to the brink. That same night, I told Jason I'd take the overseas assignment. It was a chance for growth, and I desperately needed to get away from the polluted air Ben and Grace had tainted. As I was busy with my visa application, a friend who had attended the wedding called to tell me Ben and Grace were having a major fallout. Ben was demanding she pay back the $1 million he invested in her studio, even threatening to sue her. But where was Grace going to find that kind of money? She cried, threw a fit, and even threatened to hurt herself. It didn't make sense. Her family was wealthy enough to send her abroad. My friend then explained that her ex-boyfriend had funded her studies. He was loaded and didn't care about the money. But just before their wedding, he found out Grace had been secretly dating Ben during college and cut off all financial support, leaving her stranded. That's when she came crawling back to Ben. My friend pitted Ben, saying he'd been fooled. I scoffed. What is he? A clueless toddler? If anyone's to blame, Grace deserves 30 lashes. But Ben needs 70. Stop acting like he's some innocent, pure-hearted soul. I told my friend, thanks for the update, but I don't care anymore. Spare me the details. Few days later, I heard that Ben actually did sue Grace. She couldn't pay him back and got blacklisted for defaulting on her debts. Meanwhile, my visa finally came through. Just before I left the country, one of Ben's friends called me in a panic. Spring, please come to the hospital. Ben was admitted for alcohol poisoning. Apparently, he had been drinking himself to oblivion ever since our breakup. I hung up, muttering to myself, don't believe everything you hear. The very next day, Ben called me from his friend's phone, sounding completely sober. Spring, I'm in the hospital. Didn't you promise you'd bring me homemade meals every day? I want to eat the porridge you used to make. Any kind. Whatever you cook. I love it. When will you come see me? I miss you so much. I thought I'd open my eyes and see you right here. Ben's voice came through soft and pleading, filled with a familiar affection that used to tug at my heart. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I cut him off. Stop with the act, Ben. Old promises don't hold up anymore. There was a heavy pause before he spoke again, his voice breaking. So you're really never going to forgive me, are you? You shattered my idea of love. I sighed. And besides, I'm leaving. The boarding announcement echoed in the background. I could hear a commotion on Ben's end, his breaths coming in quick. Panic bursts. Spring, where are you going? I smirked. Even a small-town girl like me is heading abroad. With that, I hung up, pulled out the SIM card, and boarded the plane, stepping into the next chapter of my life. The first few weeks overseas were a blur of adjusting to a new environment and immersing myself in work. Once I settled into a steady routine, I reconnected with colleagues back home, catching up on office gossip. One day, a coworker sent me a message. Guess what? Supervisor Clark got into a fight during lunch. I was taken aback. Who? Jason. A fight. I couldn't picture it. Peyton was always the epitome of professionalism, showing up in a perfectly pressed suit and neatly styled hair. When faced with difficult situations, he would just adjust his black-rimmed glasses and furrow his brows slightly, more like a calm professor than a hot-headed brawler. The idea of him getting into a fistfight seemed absurd. My coworker took a deep breath before dropping the bombshell. It was with your ex-boyfriend. I froze. Wait, they know each other. Apparently, your ex called him a homewrecker, and our supervisor shot back with, you don't deserve her. There was a pause, followed by a hint of excitement in my coworker's voice. Was he talking about you? I laughed it off. You're crazy. That doesn't make any sense. But even as I dismissed it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Late that night, lying in bed, I found myself replaying the idea of Jason standing up to Ben on my behalf. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. But I brushed it off as him simply disliking Ben. After all, everyone found him insufferable. I ended up staying with the overseas branch for 2 years. On the same day I received news of my promotion, I also got a notice to return home. Back in the city, I was finally given my own office. My mom wasted no time lounging on the plush leather sofa, laying out grand plans for my future. In 3 years, you'll be a general manager. In 5, you'll be a CEO and marry some tall, rich, and handsome guy. Her ambitious dreams were cut short by a knock at the door. Clearing my throat, I switched to my professional tone. Come in. The new department manager walked in, smiling. A rare sight. Long time no see. Today's treat is milk tea for the afternoon. 6 years after graduating, I finally bought my own 2-bedroom apartment. As I stepped out of the sales office, I noticed a tiny kitten huddled at the door. Her tail curled up, meowing desperately. She couldn't have been more than 2 months old. Her light yellow fur matted and wet, clinging to her frail little body. She looked so fragile. It broke my heart. I used tissues to dry her off and waited with her for 2 hours. But her mother never came. I crouched down and reached out a hand. Do you want to come home with me? In that moment, something magical happened. She meowed softly, crawling toward me with her tiny tail held high. Her voice thin but determined. She flopped down on my shoes, pawing at my shoelaces, her tiny head bobbing with curiosity. My heart melted. I wrapped her in my jacket, cradling her close, and gently stroked her damp little nose. No, Mom. No, Dad. Huh. Well, neither do I. Let's be each other's family from now on. At the class reunion, he had achieved success and fame, arriving with a beautiful girlfriend. He said, if you hadn't let go back then, you'd be the wife of the Richards Group CEO by now. He sat across from me, his arm around his girlfriend, his expression indifferent. It's all in the past. The others, eager to stir the pot, started teasing. Under his gaze, I silently covered the scars on my wrist, forcing a faint smile. We've been over for a long time. As I recall, it was Emma Carter who initiated the breakup, taking advantage of his girlfriend's trip to the restroom. The classmates began gossiping. Emma Carter. That's me. Ethan Richards sat across from me, a faint smile on his lips. Yet his gaze was icy cold. This was the first time we'd met in the 6 years since our breakup. Everything felt sudden and overwhelming. I hadn't planned to see him, especially since the class president assured me Ethan wouldn't come. But here he was. Now, Ethan Richards was a successful entrepreneur, a city-renowned young talent with an overseas degree. In his tailored suit, looking sharp and handsome, even his wristwatch was worth a fortune. Everyone sought to flatter him. By contrast, I had fallen far behind. Yes, he was the one who brought up the breakup first. Ethan, calm as ever, answered everyone's questions. Each person had their own interpretation. That I was greedy for money, unwilling to endure hardship, or simply bet on the wrong person and lost everything. Emma, I heard the guy you were with afterward went to jail, right? You even took on his debts. Is that why you came to this reunion? To ask for money? Amid the mockery, Ethan's deep, calm gaze stayed fixed on me, silent. I laughed awkwardly, not responding. The door opened, and Ethan's girlfriend walked back in. Sensing the strange atmosphere, she smiled and asked, what happened while I was gone? Ethan, shedding his earlier silence, gently held her hand and said, nothing, just catching up. He sat back down smoothly, his gaze settling on me again, a faint smile forming, his dimples showing. Ethan mentioned to me, if you hadn't let go back then, you'd be the wife of the Richards Group CEO now. Several people exchanged looks filled with schadenfreude. Back in the day, the Carter family was at its peak, and I was always surrounded by admiration wherever I went. That envy didn't fade over time. Instead, it became the reason for their ridicule years later. Ethan broke the awkwardness, his voice cold yet commanding. It's all in the past. The group quickly caught on that he didn't want to continue this topic, and shifted the conversation. His girlfriend raised her glass toward me. Thank you for letting him go. When we get married, you must come. I silently covered the scars on my wrist, forcing a faint congratulations. Why didn't you explain it to him clearly? On the phone, my best friend Chloe Johnson was indignant for me. The reunion ended early. Wrapped in my coat, I stood in the cold wind, exhaling a breath of warm air. He has a girlfriend now, I replied. The other end of the call went quiet. He has a girlfriend? Chloe sounded incredulous. Yes. Classmates left in small groups, their figures dispersing under the streetlights, their glow refracted on the snowy ground like shattered glass. Such a shame. You finally saw him after all this time. After everything you've done. Chloe, no one waits forever. Some words, if left unsaid, become meaningless when spoken later. The cold wind stung my eyes, making them ache. I blinked away the burning tears. I've given up. Even after all these years of effort, struggling to climb out of the mud, hoping to meet him in the most dignified way. It's too late now. All right, we'll talk when you get back. The temperature had already dropped below freezing. Taxis were hard to find. I stood for a while, my hands going numb from the cold, watching as the app showed I was still in the queue. Behind me, the sound of high heels echoed. A woman's gentle, silky voice. Ethan, the snow is beautiful. It's so cold outside. Let's go to the car. I'll be there in a moment. Ethan's distinct voice replied. All right, hurry. As she walked past me, she gave me a meaningful look, then went to a nearby car, opening the door just enough to reveal a bracelet on her wrist. The Richards family heirloom. It had once been mine. After the breakup, I'd returned it through someone else. So, she wasn't just his girlfriend, she was his fiancée. The crowd dispersed until it was just me and Ethan left. My taxi hadn't arrived yet. Ethan stood behind me, silent as ever. The two of us lingered in the quiet, our shadows overlapping under the streetlights. My mind drifted back to that night. The night we broke up. On his way to see me, Ethan had been in a car accident. His brother called, furious. Ethan's in the hospital. Is he in danger? No, or you wouldn't have come. Take care of him. Emma. He got the offer to go abroad. He'll succeed someday. Why can't you wait? Do you need money that badly? After all he's done for you, can you really just forget it all? His brother had been on the verge of breaking down, nearly calling me ungrateful. The phone was suddenly snatched away and smashed. It was fair to say I'd abandoned him. His resentment toward me was justified. How much do you owe? Ethan's cold voice pulled me back to the present. It's none of your business. I inhaled the icy air, my throat stinging from the alcohol. A sudden coughing fit doubled me over. Clutching the lamppost, the alcohol churned in my stomach, tears streaming down from the choking. Ethan stood by, watching coldly. The taxi finally arrived. The driver leaned out. Heading to Westwood Mansions? Yes. I straightened, grasped the car door, but was suddenly pulled away, crashing into Ethan's arms. He asked, "What are you going there for?" Westwood Mansions was an exclusive area. Not just anyone could enter. I tried to push his hand away, but his grip tightened on my wrist. The heat of his touch spread to my chest. I struggled but couldn't break free. Looking up, I met his dark, unreadable eyes. Mr. Richards, what are you trying to say? His black eyes remained calm, revealing no emotion. The wind whipped through, scattering my hair. I forced a smile and said, "You think, like everyone else, that the money I've earned is dirty. 50,000 a month. Will that do?" Ethan's cold voice interrupted me. What do you mean? For the money you need. If 50,000 isn't enough, say the amount. I suddenly raised my hand. The crisp sound of a slap echoed in the cold night. Ethan's face bore a clear imprint of my hand. From a distance, his fiancée cried out in alarm. She rushed out of the car. "Live your life well. And keep your hands out of mine," I said. I threw out those words and got into the car to leave. You hit him. Chloe handed me a cup of warm water. Yeah. He tried to take care of me. I curled up on the couch, enduring waves of stabbing pain in my stomach, slowly sipping the water. After a while, I suddenly turned and ran to the bathroom to throw it up. Chloe patted my back. You know you shouldn't drink if your stomach's bad. I took a few deep breaths and wiped away the water left on my lips from rinsing. My esophagus burned fiercely. Was it worth it? Liking him for all these years? I looked up at myself in the mirror. My damp eyelashes clumped together. My black hair was wet and clinging to my forehead. My face was pale. Chloe's complaints sounded distant, unclear. If you hadn't been so resolute about breaking up, he wouldn't be who he is now. Today, I thought of Ethan's fiancée again. Compared to me, she shone with brightness and joy. I vaguely remembered that years ago, I had been like that too. But I felt too hard. By the time I climbed out of the pit, everything had changed. When Chloe finished her work at Westwood Mansions, we walked hand in hand down the road to our rented apartment. Suddenly, I got a call from Ethan's brother. "Emma," he said, "if you're struggling, I can arrange a job for you." I didn't reply, waiting to hear more. "They're getting married next month. Jane's a good person. Her family's well off too. Don't worry. She won't let him get hurt." He paused for a moment, then added, almost apologetically, "We just want Ethan to live a good life." Years ago, all our mutual friends had taken Ethan's side without exception. After the call ended, Chloe's eyes were red. "They don't understand anything. It's fine. Since I had to stay in this city for a while, I found a job nearby." During the interview, the HR manager casually asked, "Do you have depression?" "It's in the past. I'm fine now. I have a certificate from my doctor to prove it." Previous companies had rejected me during background checks because of this. But this company was small. And that evening, I got an offer. I thought the class reunion would be the last time Ethan and I crossed paths. But 3 days later, Ethan appeared at my company as my new boss. My desk was moved right outside his office. I refused. "You can quit," Ethan said without looking up, his voice cold. "Just hand in your resignation to HR." I laughed in disbelief. "You're firing me just because I won't switch desks?" He paused his pen, finally raising his head to look at me. "I'm just giving you a choice. Do you really think I'm after something from you?" I thought of Chloe arguing with the landlord last night over rent and forced a smile. "Vice President Richards, your integrity is unparalleled. I have no fear." Ethan nodded slightly. "Good. On your way out, close the door. And make sure your chair faces away from me. I don't want to see your face." For the next few days, we barely interacted. A week later, the company had a team-building event. As the new hire, I was pressured into drinking far too much. "Miss Carter, if you don't drink, we'll dock your pay. Don't worry. If you get drunk, we'll take you home. We're all women here. What's there to be afraid of?" The manager smiled. And amidst the jeers, I downed my last drink for the night, collapsing onto the table, unconscious. The next morning, I woke up on a large bed, sunlight streaming through the window, too bright to open my eyes. As I sat up, the blanket slipped off, revealing the soft bathrobe wrapped around me. I froze for a moment, then got out of bed and walked into the spacious living room. Ethan was sitting there, one leg crossed over the other, wearing a hotel bathrobe and reading a newspaper. When he saw me, he looked up lazily. "You're awake. Breakfast is on the table. Eat and get some more rest." A chill ran through me. My face turned pale. The newspaper was casually placed on the coffee table. His slightly open collar revealed faint, ambiguous marks on his skin. "Unfortunately, last night, you were the one who made the first move." I was struck as if by lightning. My memory of the night was completely blank. "Impossible," I said. Ethan placed a contract in front of me, complete with my fingerprint. It stated that I would become his mistress in exchange for a monthly payment of $10,000. "This isn't my fingerprint." "Is that so?" Ethan chuckled lightly. "Are you sure?" Facing his calm, composed gaze, I opened my mouth but couldn't say a word. Ignoring my discomfort, he pulled out a voice recorder. "I accidentally recorded your confession last night. Would you like to hear your own vile thoughts?" I trembled all over, feeling like I had fallen into an ice pit. A wave of intense shame washed over me. Even when hidden, such thoughts felt dirty. Now that they'd been voiced and used against me, it was as if I'd committed a crime. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes shadowed, his expression unreadable. How about I play this recording for Jane and her family? What do you think? Emma. I clenched my hands into fists, my nails digging into my palms. Are you doing this to get back at me? Yes, he said flatly. You didn't want me to live well back then. Why should I let you live well now? Two choices. Honor the contract or I'll release the recording. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, matching the thumping of my heartbeat in my ears. My lips were dry as I slowly looked up. Then release it, I said, my voice hollow. Under his icy stare, I numbly added, I won't be a mistress. Ethan looked at me with a faint smile. Emma Carter, who do you think you are? Do you think you still have the right to choose? In the bathroom, I found my crumpled clothes. Meanwhile, Ethan's clothes were neatly arranged on the coat rack by the door. The contrast stung my eyes. I sighed, silently changed, and left the hotel. Chloe called me, her voice trembling. Emma, they're demanding $50,000. If you don't pay, they'll expose your past. They won't tell you where your mother's ashes or her belongings are either. The sky was gray, overcast, with no sunlight. Chloe hadn't saved much because of my medical bills. I had little savings left too. They're blackmailing us, Chloe said, her voice breaking. I'll figure it out, I replied. After much hesitation, I dialed a number. It rang for a long time before it was answered. Miss Carter, what can I do for you? I exhaled deeply. Dr. James, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to borrow $40,000. It was the first time I'd ever asked anyone for money. My entire body burned with shame. There was a commotion on the other end of the line. I have to go. Emergency surgery, he said abruptly. I hadn't expected much, already prepared for him to hang up. But at the last moment, he said, send me your account number. I'll transfer it to you today. Then the call ended. The sky was still gray and heavy, but the cold tone of the busy signal felt a little warmer now. That evening, the manager tapped on my desk. We're having dinner with a client tonight. You're coming. A few hours earlier, I had just asked for an advance on my salary. With the borrowed money and my savings, I barely scraped together the $50,000. When I entered the private dining room, I saw Ethan, tall and composed. He mingled with ease. The crystal chandelier above reflected a glow that outlined his sharp features. The manager gave me a light push. Suddenly, all eyes turned to me. Vice President Richards. Is she from your company? Ethan glanced at me casually. A new hire, he said. What kind of new hire needs the VP to personally bring her along? Quite impressive. Amid the chatter, everyone sat down. The manager arranged for me to sit beside Ethan. He leaned close and whispered, be smart tonight. If you need to drink, drink. The group smiled knowingly. Vice President Richards, can your new employee handle her alcohol? Before Ethan could answer, the manager quickly said, she can handle it. Don't worry. He placed a glass of wine in front of me. Start with a toast. Ethan smiled faintly, tapping his fingers lightly on the table. I picked up the wine glass, held my breath, and downed it in one gulp. The spicy liquor burned its way down my throat, igniting a fire that raged through my stomach. Amid the applause and cheers, someone was ready to refill my glass when Ethan spoke, smoothly changing the topic. What were we talking about earlier? Let's continue. The lively atmosphere returned, with many toasting Ethan. He politely declined each time, claiming his stomach couldn't handle alcohol. But all those drinks ended up being redirected to me, courtesy of the manager. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore and stumbled to the restroom. The faucet at the sink was turned on, water running steadily. I gagged violently, my head spinning, hair coming loose and dipping into the sink, turning wet in no time. After sending a text to Chloe, I completely ran out of strength. I leaned against the sink, head down, eyes shut tight as I gasped for breath. The sound of deliberate footsteps echoed outside. The door opened slowly. I assumed it was another woman entering the restroom, but instead, Ethan's calm voice cut through the silence. You're already at your limit? Summoning what little strength I had, I stood up shakily, staggering toward the door to leave. Ethan grabbed my arm and dragged me back. His large hand pressed against the back of my neck, radiating searing heat. Let go of me, I said hoarsely, each word scraping painfully against my throat, raw from the stomach acid. Ethan easily pulled me in front of the mirror, forcing me to face my reflection. He lifted my chin with his hand, a cold smirk on his lips. Take a good look at yourself, he said mockingly. Looking like this, aren't you afraid of attracting the wrong kind of attention? In the mirror, my eyes glistened with unshed tears. My cheeks flushed crimson. Loose strands of hair framed my face, and my collar was slightly open. Ethan's dark, intense gaze roamed my body through the mirror, utterly unrestrained. I closed my eyes, trembling all over. Who could have worse intentions than you? I whispered, my voice shaking. Ethan chuckled softly, leaning down to whisper in my ear. Come home with me tonight. What do you say? Get lost, I snapped, but he silenced me with a kiss. His forceful lips robbing the air from my lungs. My blood, heated by the alcohol, surged through my veins like molten lava, burning every inch of me. The lights blurred into a swirling haze. Droplets of water clung to my vision like a thin veil, each one a stinging acid drop that landed on my heart. I broke out in a cold sweat, weakly pushing against him. It felt as if I had been dragged back to those dark days, staring helplessly at the vibrant world around me, knowing I didn't belong. Ethan, please let me go. My voice was barely audible, falling into an abyss of silence. I hit the bottom hard. It should have hurt, but I couldn't feel anything anymore. Emma, Ethan called out to me, his tone urgent. It wasn't the usual venom-filled glare he used to throw my way. This time, there was a trace of panic in his eyes. For a moment, I couldn't tell whether the man in front of me was the Ethan from years ago or the Ethan standing before me now. I whispered, Ethan, I never want to see you again. The fever came swiftly and fiercely. I was in a daze, writhing in pain under the thick blanket, my body trembling uncontrollably. Outside, the northern wind howled. Half conscious, I dreamed of the past. I was lying on Ethan's back, asking him, what if I die? Ethan. He carried me steadily, his voice gentle as he soothed me. Don't say that. It's just a fever. Once you get your injection, you'll be fine. Hey, do you have enough for your living expenses? Injections are expensive, I muttered weakly. It's fine. How is it fine? How many part-time jobs have you taken on? Ethan didn't answer. He placed me gently at the nurse's station and crouched down in front of me, speaking seriously. As long as you're safe and sound, nothing else matters. I buried myself deeper in my thick winter coat, conflicted. When my parents stop fighting, I'll ask them for money and pay you back. Ethan reached out to tousle my hair, his gaze tender. Trust me, one day, we'll have plenty of money. But I didn't turn out the way he had hoped. Safe and sound. The night Ethan left for an out-of-town competition, I returned home and pushed open my parents' bedroom door. Inside, my father was holding another woman protectively in his arms. That was when my seemingly perfect life began to crumble. What followed was endless. Heated arguments between my parents. Eventually, my father disappeared without a word, leaving my family buried under a mountain of debt. Late one night, a group of middle-aged men came to collect what was owed. Under the flickering light, they shouted with excitement, their crude hands leaving bruises on my skin. My mother's heart-wrenching screams mixed with their mocking laughter, creating a chaotic storm in my mind. The images fast-forwarded like a reel on speed. My mother, driven to desperation, ended her life in the bathtub. Chloe was the one who found my lifeless body and brought me to a distant southern city. On a rainy day, I sat curled up in the corner of a hospital in my school uniform, disheveled and vacant. She has a family history of depression, the doctor said. Any relatives? Chloe looked at me with concern. She has a boyfriend. He's out of town for a competition. Notify him to come. The doctor's professional tone blended with clinical jargon. Her suicidal tendencies are pronounced, and the treatment will be challenging. She'll need long-term care for years. Her family should be prepared for the long haul. By then, my mental state couldn't support me reporting the crimes or seeking justice. Chloe and I became like stray dogs, fleeing our childhood home with nothing but the clothes on our backs. That same day, Ethan's name topped the list of competition winners. He'd secured a scholarship to study abroad. When he called, the wind howled on the other end of the line. Emma. His voice was impossibly tender. I didn't let you down. In 3 years, I'll marry you. I stared at the iron gate slowly closing behind me, realizing I'd lost my way home. Ethan, I don't think I can be with you anymore, I whispered, choking on my tears as they fell silently. He held his breath. Why? I opened my mouth but hesitated. His future was bright. How could I selfishly tie him to the rainy, desolate corner of my world? Beyond the bars of the window, a girl sobbed uncontrollably. The boy beside her wore a mask of indifference and frustration. I saw love disappear from someone's eyes for the first time. It was despairing. The wind blew, exposing bruises and bite marks on my neck. I wiped my tears and said, Ethan, live your life well. Let's call it quits. The sound of a ticking clock echoed in my ears. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, landing softly on the sofa not far away, like golden threads woven into the air. I blinked, the nightmare fading. Sitting up, I saw a man on the sofa, quietly peeling an apple. His pale, slender fingers worked skillfully, and soon a perfectly peeled apple lay in his hands, round and pristine. It was Ethan. Hearing my movements, he looked up and met my gaze. Wordlessly, he stood and pressed the call button. Moments later, the doctor entered, shining a light into my eyes before declaring, She's fine. Her nutrition is lacking, though. Make sure to include more protein in her meals. Ethan nodded. Thank you. The door closed behind the doctor. He walked to the side of the bed, handing me the apple. Don't overthink it. Just focus on getting better. I didn't take it. Instead, I got out of bed and rummaged through the cabinet, looking for my phone. It was gone, along with my outdoor clothes. He watched me tear through the hospital room without a word. Ethan, what are you trying to do? I stood barefoot on the floor. A shaft of sunlight streamed in, reflecting my pale, haggard face on the window. You don't know what I'm trying to do? Ethan placed the apple on the bedside table, pulled out a tissue, and slowly wiped his hands. I want you. He sat there in the sunlight, his dark eyes fixed on me without reservation, burning with an intensity that made me feel humiliated. I clenched my trembling fists. Ethan, you can't treat me like this. Ethan stood, closing the gap between us in a few steps. He towered over me, smoothing my disheveled hair. Why can't I? I'm in love with someone else. Please, don't bother me anymore. Oh, really? His face turned expressionless. He cupped my face with both hands, his lips moving closer to mine, stopping barely an inch away. I couldn't open my eyes. The moment he tilted his head, I shut them tight, my body shivering uncontrollably. Ethan chuckled, his cold voice piercing my ears. Emma, you're lying. The private hospital was located in the suburbs, surrounded by endless forests. I couldn't leave, nor could I contact anyone. I tried asking the doctors and nurses for help, but they claimed they couldn't intervene. Ethan came every day, usually in the evening, arriving as if from a long journey. He would sit and talk to me. I resisted all his attempts at intimacy, though he didn't push too hard. Recently, my dreams had been filled with memories of the past. Back then, I would constantly say his name. Ethan, you're going to be rich and successful one day. Ethan sighed silently. What kind of milk do you want today? Banana flavored. Once, in his effort to buy me banana milk, Ethan skipped class for the first time and got caught by the teacher. Later, when he went to college, rumors about him dating the campus beauty spread. I rode over 10 subway stops to his dormitory and sat outside crying. Ethan rushed down in the middle of the night, quickly dressed, and gently wiped my tears. Don't cry. If you want me, I'm yours. I'll only ever belong to you. That's not how you confess love, I had said, stunned. He froze for a moment before pulling me tightly into his arms. I love you. Back then, neither of us could have guessed we'd end up like this so many years later. I'm getting married tomorrow. The sunset outside hadn't yet faded, its warmth lingering in the air. Ethan's voice pulled me out of my distant thoughts. Do you have anything you want to say to me? I held the half-empty glass of milk, staring at his face in a daze. Suddenly, I understood why I'd been dreaming so often lately. I was saying goodbye to the old Emma Carter and Ethan Richards. The TV had been broadcasting news about him and Jane every day. They were the golden couple. A perfect match. Once, that had been the future we'd envisioned for ourselves. But now, the Emma Carter standing here was buried in debt. What right did I have? Congratulations, I said quietly. May you have children soon. Ethan's hand, which had been peeling an apple, froze. The knife slipped and nicked his finger. Blood quickly seeped out. He paused, pulled out a tissue to press against the cut, and laughed softly. It's fine. Jane and I are just going through the motions. If you want children, I have no objections. Ethan, let it go. Please, I said suddenly, feeling utterly exhausted. Let's just end this gracefully. Ethan stopped peeling the apple and tossed it back into the fruit basket. He stared at me with a cold, mocking smile. Just let it go? Why should I? You were the one who started this. And now you're saying you're tired of it? That you want to leave so easily? Then what am I supposed to be? A dog you play with and discard when you're bored? I closed my eyes, trying to dispel the sunlight that painted faint halos behind my eyelids. Then I'll return it to you, I said softly. Ethan frowned. What did you say? I stared at the setting sun outside the window. If you don't want me to live well, I can die. Suddenly, a hand grabbed my jaw, forcing me to turn my face toward him. Ethan's eyes were blazing with anger. Emma, are you insane? If you wanted to die so badly, why didn't you do it back then? I don't remember when he left that night. Later, Ethan's brother, Zach, a friend from years ago, burst through the door. Emma, what did you promise me? He demanded, his voice sharp. I sat there, dazed, as his accusations rained down on me. Do you know how much Ethan stands to lose if he cancels the engagement? You're an adult now. Can you stop being so selfish and reckless? Always leaving Ethan to clean up your mess? Can't you think about him for once? What happened? I asked weakly. What happened? Zach laughed bitterly. Ethan is calling off the wedding because of you. And you're asking what happened? My ears buzzed, my mind going blank as I sat frozen. Calling off the wedding? What would I be then? A home-wrecking third party? Zach grabbed my wrist forcefully, pulling me out of bed. Come with me. You used to be good at this, didn't you? Bored. Found someone new. Make up any excuse you like. Zach. His voice shook with rage. Do you think any of this would have happened if you hadn't come back? His furious roars echoed in the wind and snow, freezing every sense in my body. That night, Zach dragged me to Ethan's office building, its lights still blazing late into the night. But by the time we arrived, the press conference had already begun. Ethan sat confidently under the spotlight, answering questions with ease. Is it true that the wedding is being called off because of a third party? A reporter asked. Ethan smiled calmly. Jane and I had some differences. We decided to part ways amicably. Zach's face darkened, his grip on my wrist tightening to the point of pain. Don't move, he hissed. But a source claims you've rekindled a romance with your first love. Is that true? Ethan remained composed. Just rumors. If there are no further questions, this press conference is over. He rose to leave, but just then, someone in the crowd shouted, There he is. That's him. Suddenly, every camera in the room swung in my direction. I was exposed under the spotlight, disheveled and humiliated. Reporters swarmed in like a tidal wave. In just a few seconds, I was surrounded, leaving no room to escape. Questions were fired at me one after another. What is your relationship with Ethan Richards? Did you really interfere in someone else's marriage? The sound of camera shutters clicked relentlessly. Ethan's smile froze abruptly. He stood up, pushing through the crowd toward me. It's not true. I didn't. I tried weakly to defend myself, but my voice was quickly drowned out by the reporter's fervent questioning. There's breaking news, one reporter shouted excitedly, raising his phone. A recording played from the phone, my voice ringing out through the chaos. It was filled with tears and drunken slurs. Aaron, I love you. It hit me instantly. Someone had recorded me. For a long time, I thought nothing could make my life worse. But when this storm hit, completely destroyed me. She's the other woman, isn't she? Shameless. The whispers around me felt like slaps to my face. The blood drained from my cheeks as the recording pinned me to the pillar of shame. "I'm sorry," Zach muttered. "Take her away." Ethan pushed through the crowd, his face showing panic for the first time. The world around me turned white. I could only hear the murmurs repeating over and over. Her dad owed debts. Her mom committed suicide. She has severe hereditary depression and was confined to a mental hospital in the South for 5 years. Isn't she just mentally ill? The crowd erupted. If she's sick, why is she out here hurting others? She's crazy. Why didn't she just die? Ethan stopped in his tracks, suddenly raising his head to look at me. His expression was a mix of shock, disbelief, and horror. I sat helplessly in the chaotic crowd, my blood running cold until my entire body felt frozen. "Emma!" Ethan's voice trembled as he called my name. I knew what was coming. I could only sit in quiet resignation, waiting for the final blow to fall and shatter my life completely. And she was assaulted, the anonymous source concluded. The moment those words hit, Ethan's face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. From the day I returned from the office, I hadn't spoken a word. The blinds in my study remained shut for 3 days, keeping the room shrouded in darkness. Missed calls filled my phone screen, but I didn't open any of them. It felt as though time had paused, trapping me in a void. I sat there, head down, lifeless. The cold voice of the man who had taken Emma away echoed in my ears. "All of us wanted her to live, Mr. Richards. But your iron-handed methods have crushed all our efforts to nothing." Chloe had been stopped by the security guards outside. She yelled at me with fury. "Ethan, do you even know what happens when she doesn't take her medication? Keeping her locked up is no different from killing her." Words like depression and mental institution spun in my mind like sharp needles, stabbing at my thoughts until I couldn't breathe. Zach knocked on the door before pushing it open slightly and standing in the doorway. "Hey, are you feeling any better?" "Why?" My voice was hoarse, my chest aching with an unbearable weight. Zach was silent for a moment before apologizing. "I'm sorry. I didn't think it was necessary to check. The information was fake." "Is that so?" My voice was soft, almost lifeless. Zach hesitated. "When I told you she had moved abroad and had several boyfriends, Emma was actually confined to a mental hospital in the South. I didn't know. I swear." His explanation felt hollow, meaningless. I knew I couldn't blame Zach entirely. If I had asked more questions, maybe things wouldn't have turned out this way. But I didn't have the energy to listen to his excuses anymore. Chloe barged in, ignoring the secretary's attempts to stop her. The sudden light made me squint slightly, but I didn't try to stop her. "I'm sorry, Vice President Richards," the secretary mumbled before closing the door, leaving us in dim silence once again. Chloe stood there, as though unwilling to have anything to do with me. "Vice President, there are some things that need to be said now." A sliver of cold wind blew in through the small gap in the window, chilling me to the bone. I sat there motionless, listening quietly. "When you make mistakes, you'll face retribution eventually, sooner or later." She paused, her voice trembling. "Last year, on Emma's birthday, I jokingly asked her who she loved most in the world. She said, 'First, my mom. Second, Ethan.' I closed my eyes. That answer pierced me to the core. Back then, her condition was improving. She only needed a small dose of medication daily to live like a normal person. So this year, to sort through her mother's belongings, I brought her back. She always said the breakup back then was too messy. This time, she just wanted to reunite with you properly, even if it was from afar. Even just seeing you as a successful businessman would have been enough." Chloe's eyes reddened. "She knows she's not worthy of you anymore." "Not worthy of me?" My hands curled into fists. "Do you know how you got that competition slot back then?" I froze, sensing the truth rushing toward me like a tidal wave. It was pre-assigned to someone else. Emma wrote a letter demanding fairness and transparency. That's the only reason the spot went to you. But by doing so, she offended many people. After her father ran away, she and her mother faced endless harassment. The invisible weight around my neck tightened, suffocating me. "Did she get bullied because of that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Chloe continued, "You were at the competition for about a week. so you wouldn't have known what happened. Emma's family collapsed. Her dad left with another woman, leaving behind massive debts. Debt collectors hounded her and her mom constantly. Her mother committed suicide, and Emma's condition worsened until she was admitted to the hospital. She was tormented so badly back then. She wasn't even recognizable anymore. Chloe's voice cracked as she glared at me. When you had your car accident, Emma cried and begged me to let her die instead. How could she have come to you? I felt my world crumble around me. Memories of the past few months clawed at my mind, torturing me. I had allowed the manager to get Emma drunk and send her to my room, coaxing her into revealing her secrets. I'd fabricated a fake contract just to see her struggle and despair. I'd humiliated her again and again, and in the end, I'd locked her away in that private hospital. Chloe had tried to reach me so many times, but I ignored her, asking instead why Emma didn't just die back then. Emma's hollow gaze had always lingered on me. I thought it was because she still loved me. But now, I realized she had been silently asking how I could be so cruel. Why didn't anyone tell me? I muttered, my voice breaking. How could we explain it to you? Chloe sobbed. She was sick. Just staying alive was already a luxury. All she wanted was to not drag you down with her. Chloe's words hit me like a hammer to the chest, crushing me under their weight. She thought your education was more important than anything. That competition was her last hope for you. She just wanted you to live well. Ethan, does she deserve this? Does she deserve to die? Those words pierced through me, cutting deeper than anything else. The one who tormented her, humiliated her, and mocked her endlessly was me. The one who insulted her with that fake contract, knowing she would never stoop to such things, was also me. Chloe's voice was hoarse, her tone bitter. We tried everything to make Emma want to live again. But there was only one thing that worked. Your name, Ethan. She never forgot your name. When I left this place before, I jokingly told Chloe, I'll never come back here again. Turns out, you should never tempt fate. I fell ill again. In the southern city, it's always winter, just drier than usual. Normally, it rains icy droplets. But this year, surprisingly, it snowed. The doctors and nurses chatted idly, saying this was an unusually cold winter. Global warming has made Earth less and less suitable for human survival. The new year was approaching. Outside the window, the trees were stripped bare. Not a single leaf left. I pressed my face against the glass, exhaling a mist that fogged the pain. There was someone downstairs. He stood there every day. Isn't he cold? I asked. Chloe passed by expressionlessly, carrying a cup of warm milk. Oh, probably not, she replied. He hasn't been in a good mood lately. Even Dr. Jiang hasn't. I've been treading lightly around both of them lately, afraid of setting them off. Chloe paused, realizing she might have scared me. She softened her tone. Drink the milk. Take your medication in an hour. Dr. Jiang said he'd take you out to build a snowman tonight. I glanced at the person outside again, something about him feeling familiar. Chloe pulled the curtains closed. Stop looking, or you'll go blind. I climbed back into bed. After taking my medication, I leaned against the pillows and played a game on my phone. From outside, I heard Chloe talking to Dr. Jiang. A moment later, the door opened, and he walked in. I quickly hid my phone, pretending to sit up properly. Have you taken your meds? Dr. Jiang asked. The scent of disinfectant filled the room. His gaze swept over me before settling on my face. Miss Carter, I'm not going to scold you for playing games. My cheeks flushed bright red. I sheepishly pulled my phone back out. How did you know I was playing? I play too. The background music is familiar, he said, smiling faintly. He washed his hands, removed his white coat, and glanced at me through the mirror. Aren't you going to get dressed? We're going to build that snowman. Dr. Jiang worked in thoracic surgery at the same hospital. The first time I met him, it was autumn. The weather had cleared up unexpectedly, and I crouched by the fence outside, staring at a stray ball of yarn that had appeared. He walked by, pausing to look down at me. Excuse me, I panted, exhausted. Can you help untangle this for me? He glanced up at the sign on the fence. According to the rules, you're not allowed to touch anything dangerous. When I didn't move, he added, What are you trying to do? Cat's cradle. Dr. Jiang checked the time, then crouched down. I'll play with you, but when we're done, I'm taking the string. His lunch break was short. Quietly, through the bars of the fence, I held out my hands to play with him for a while. When he was about to leave, I said, "Thank you." We crossed paths a few more times after that, though he was usually too busy to notice me. Then one day, he came back. He pulled out the string. "Sorry, I've been busy lately." After that, he started chatting with me. "You don't talk much," he observed. Why? I'm sick. I don't have anything cheerful to say, and I don't want to burden others with my feelings. Dr. Jiang stared at me silently. Over time, he began visiting more frequently. Some days, he looked completely exhausted. I tried learning a few jokes to tell him. Every time, his gaze softened as he listened. "Emma," he once asked, "what's your wish?" "I want everyone to be happy, including myself." That night, I put on my gear quickly. Dr. Jiang helped me into a down jacket, held my hand, and led me downstairs. Every few steps, there was a security gate. Only he could take me out. Under the night sky, snow fell thickly, covering everything in white. My hat turned snowy within moments. Dr. Jiang handed me a small shovel. "Take it easy." The cold air oddly lifted my mood. I carried the shovel, circling a frozen fountain. When I turned back, I suddenly saw Ethan standing not far away. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw covered in stubble. He just stood there, staring at me. "Ethan," called softly, surprised. His lips moved. "Emma, I was wrong." In the past, I would have responded with pride and arrogance, demanding, "What exactly were you wrong about?" But now, I just clutched the shovel tightly, feeling awkward and unsure. "It's fine. I had been through too much pain. The sharp edges of my pride had long been worn down." The wind howled in the dark, carrying snow through the air. Ethan walked closer, slowly kneeling in front of me. "How can it be fine?" His voice trembled. "Emma, please say something to me." I thought for a moment before replying seriously. "I wish us both good health in the new year." In that instant, all the color drained from Ethan's face. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he shook. "Don't treat me like this, please." I touched his face. It was icy cold, just like before. I cupped his face carefully and said earnestly, "I wanted to meet you again in a dignified way. Instead, I made a mess of everything. I'm sorry. It's my fault." Ethan whispered, "If I had chosen to leave your life back then, none of this would have happened." I spoke slowly, with sadness in my voice. "At the reunion, I asked the class president if you would be there. He said no, so I went. I didn't know why he lied to me. I just wanted to hear about you, to see if you were doing well." Ethan broke down completely, crying uncontrollably. "I'm sorry, Emma. It's my fault. All of it." I smiled faintly, not sure what to feel. "Ethan, during your hardest times, I wasn't there for you either." He held my hands tightly and noticed the scars on my wrists. "You don't have to feel guilty. I won't force you to stay. Years from now, we just argue about who owes whom more." I gently brushed the snowflakes off his lashes. "Ethan, seeing your success makes me happy. I promised I'd make money for you, didn't I?" He shook his head, clutching my hands. "Without you, what's the point of anything I've achieved?" My nose was red from the cold as I blinked back tears. "Look at my scarf. It cost over $100. I already have everything I need." Ethan's gaze dimmed completely. His voice trembled. "There's no going back, is there? Ethan, you have your life, and I have mine. I'm not going back to the North City." Hurtful words aren't easily forgotten. If I return, every step I take will feel like walking on blades. That kind of pain is far worse than letting go of a relationship. Ethan took a shaky breath, clasping my hands tightly, warming them as he had done so many years ago. "I'm sorry for the recording. I set you up that night. I didn't touch you." My eyes burned with unshed tears. "Then apologize properly. Ethan, say you're sorry." He was devastated. His eyes etched with my face as if making a final goodbye. "I'm sorry." I patted his shoulder gently but couldn't bring myself to say, "It's okay. Ethan, I wish you peace and happiness in the future. The snow fell heavier, blanketing everything in white. I turned and walked away, my steps firm against the wind. Behind me, the howling wind carried faint sounds. I couldn't tell if it was the wind or Ethan sobbing. Dr. Jiang stood under a dim streetlight, wearing a tan coat, his hands in his pockets. His sharp features were barely visible, his gaze steady. As I approached, I acted as if I hadn't noticed him. What did you see? I brushed the snow off my hat's brim, looking up with reddened eyes. Dr. Jiang, I said softly. Thank you. Few days later, I saw Ethan on the entertainment news. He had lost a lot of weight. In an interview, he faced the cameras. Ethan confessed everything he had done to the media. He admitted that he had coerced me and led me into saying those words on the recording. At the same time, he revealed a copy of the engagement agreement, signed by him and Jane. The document detailed a 2-year engagement period, which was meant to end amicably with both parties benefiting from their collaboration. Neither of them had ever planned to marry. The night everything fell apart was actually the date they had originally planned to hold a press conference, announcing the dissolution of their engagement. Ethan's actions inadvertently caused catastrophic damage to his company. Years of reputation and status crumbled overnight. Sometime later, Zach called me. Emma, I owe you an explanation, he began. He told me that he had been careless. Jane had grown restless, and she had exposed my story. The debt collectors who once blackmailed me for $50,000 had lost track of me when Ethan brought me to the private hospital. Jane had bought my story from them at twice the price. Zach added that he was worried about Ethan's state of mind and asked if I could go back. I gave him the same answer as always. I've said everything I needed to. There's nothing more I can do. 3 months later, my condition had stabilized, and I was ready to be discharged. The warm spring sunlight poured over me, and the flowers outside the window were in full bloom. The familiar smell of disinfectant wafted in. I knew it was Dr. Jiang. Got anything to eat? I've been busy all day. Give me something to snack on. He was always busy and lately had been coming to my room to scavenge food. I pulled off my wool scarf, revealing a small bag of freshly steamed red bean buns. Dr. Jiang grabbed them without hesitation, tearing open the package and devouring them. I stared at him until he asked, amused, "Why are you looking at me like that? You're easy to feed." I replied. After finishing his snack, he looked at me. "Have you ever thought about settling down here?" "Why do you ask?" "Well," he said, "I have an apartment for rent." I thought about it for a moment. "Are you short on money?" He looked sincere. So I added, "I don't have much income right now, so I might not be able to afford expensive rent." "It's very cheap," he said with a straight face. "No neighbors. I'm scared to live alone." I blinked, unsure if he was serious or just trying to convince me. On the day of my discharge, a soft spring breeze lifted my spirits, bringing a long-lost smile to my face. I forgot to check the traffic light while crossing the street, and Dr. Jiang yanked me back by the collar, pulling me straight into his arms. He held on to me, not letting go. "Emma," he said softly, almost casually, his lips curling into a slight smile. "I'm pursuing you." It sounded as natural as someone commenting on the weather. In the distance, a child played with a toy drum, its rhythmic pounding echoing through the street. My heart thudded in my chest, unsteady yet brave as I looked up at him. "I've loved someone for a very long time. I'm not sure," I trailed off. The wind tousled Dr. Jiang's hair. His gaze was gentle as he replied, "Miss Carter, I've loved someone for a very long time too. Give me a chance." In that moment, my eyes grew misty. "But I've been sick. My body isn't." "Miss Carter," he interrupted softly, "you once said you hoped everyone, including yourself, could be happy." He blinked, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "I hope your wish comes true." The breeze carried the scent of spring, sunlight filtering through the trees to rest on his brow. What I once thought was an unreachable spring had quietly arrived, blooming flowers across the land. By the following winter, Jane's company declared bankruptcy. The people who had once bullied Emma were also dealt with and sent to prison by Ethan. After several crises, Ethan's company finally recovered and was back on its feet. One day, Ethan sat alone in his office for a long time. Outside, snow fell heavily. The headlights from cars below merged into streams of light. He had been working nonstop for 2 weeks, lost in a haze of exhaustion. Suddenly, he remembered this same day a year ago, when it had also snowed. Emma had appeared at the class reunion. Her eyes filled with confusion and panic when she saw him with Jane. Since then, he had dreamed countless times about that moment, wishing he could change it. In his dreams, he had dissolved the engagement beforehand, reported the manager for drugging Emma, never forced her to drink, and never said those hurtful words. In his dreams, their reunion had been dignified, just as Emma had wished. She would have come back to him, curled up in his arms late at night, crying as she told him about her past suffering. He would have comforted her, kissed her, and proposed. They would have built a home together. He could almost see the wedding photos where Emma smiled beautifully, her hand intertwined with his. But every time he woke up, he lay alone in bed, the sound of the clock ticking forward reminding him that time marched on. Emma, however, was gone from his life forever. She had left South City completely. Ethan, I wish you peace and happiness in the future. Her words were sincere and calm, but her red eyes betrayed the pain she felt. She had decided to leave, not because of anger or blame, but because he had hurt her so deeply. That wish, peace and happiness in the future, was like a gentle blade, cutting deeply into his heart, leaving a scar that would never fade. Due to years of irregular habits, Ethan had developed a severe stomach condition. The pain was excruciating during flare-ups. That night, he woke from a dream, lying alone in his cold bed. The crescent moon outside cast a faint glow. He vaguely remembered Emma sitting with him long ago, watching the moon together. Felt like a lifetime ago. A wave of longing hit him. He wanted to see her. The next day, he booked a flight to South City. A year had passed, but the weather was unchanged. Strong winds and heavy snow. People rushing through the streets. Following an address, Ethan found himself outside an apartment building. The sky was darkening, but the lights on the second floor remained off. He stood in a corner, waiting. Half an hour later, Emma's voice reached him, warm and sincere. The tomato milk wasn't very good. Next time, buy some plain milk. And I'll make it myself. Chloe likes it too. We'll invite her over to eat, she added. Ethan instinctively looked up. That familiar figure came into view, crashing into his line of sight. She wore a little white hat, perhaps pink or gray, but the snow had covered it, leaving only white. She walked steadily now, no longer swaying in the snow. Beside her was a tall man with glasses, his gentle gaze fixed on her. The man raised his eyes slightly, meeting Ethan's gaze through the snow. For a moment, neither man spoke. Dr. Jiang, Emma's voice interrupted. Are you listening to me? Yes, I heard you, he replied, shifting his attention back to her. You said you'd make tomato beef stew, but last time, you burned the pot. Emma hung her head in defeat. Oh, right. I forgot to buy a new pot. Dr. Jiang patted her hat lightly, as though comforting a big, clumsy polar bear. Go home first. The cat hasn't been fed yet. Then go buy the pot and milk together, she said. Why the rush? Because I want it tonight. Emma giggled and ran into the building. Dr. Jiang turned to look at Ethan. Ethan struggled to find words, finally saying, Congratulations. Dr. Jiang smiled faintly. Thank you. He knew Ethan had misunderstood. The son Emma mentioned was the cat they were raising together, but Dr. Jiang didn't feel the need to explain. Last year, when he had taken Emma out to build a snowman, he had already been given a chance to win her heart. Emma and Ethan had already reached the end of their story. They should move on and live their own lives. Emma's condition was stable now. Dr. Jiang was straightforward, patient, and not easily angered. A genuinely good man. Ethan knew she was doing well because he remembered what Emma looked like when she was happy. Dr. Jiang adjusted his glasses slightly, his sharp gaze unwavering. Mr. Richards, how many years have you known her? 14 years. Ethan replied without hesitation. You know her better than I do. Dr. Jiang remarked matter-of-factly. Her birthday is coming up, and I want to get her a gift. She doesn't like chocolate, but she enjoys snacks like chips. Ethan didn't need to think before responding. She prefers savory over sweet. Dr. Zhang nodded professionally. Thank you. The weight of Dr. Zhang's words, "You know her better than I do," didn't escape Ethan. If he truly knew her, why had he hated her so deeply? Why had he subjected her to so much pain? A clear voice cut through the wind and snow. Ethan. Startled, Ethan turned his head. The face that had haunted his dreams suddenly appeared before him. Emma stood there with her umbrella, her arms full, her wide eyes reflecting confusion and shock. What are you doing here? Ethan's heart ached. In her eyes, he saw clarity and peace. She had let go. He hesitated for a moment before replying. I was passing by on business. I ran into Dr. Zhang and stopped to chat. Passing by this neighborhood? Emma asked, her tone tinged with skepticism. Dr. Zhang interjected. Why did you come down again? Emma seemed to remember something. She handed him the umbrella. The snow's getting heavier. I didn't want you to catch a cold, so I came to bring you this. Her lips curved slightly as she spoke to Dr. Zhang. Her gaze warm. The scene pierced Ethan's heart. Would you like to come in? Dr. Zhang asked politely. Ethan forced a smile. I can't. I have a flight tonight and need to hurry. Emma clutched her coat, then suddenly remembered something. Wait here, she said, dashing back inside. Dr. Zhang followed her without a word. Ethan waited outside, snow piling around him. The gray sky felt oppressively heavy, and his stomach began to ache again. Zach called. Hey, your test results came back. Zach hesitated. It's stomach cancer. Ethan didn't move, his gaze fixed on the heavy snowfall. I understand, he replied flatly, ending the call. He stood there as if nothing had happened, waiting patiently with his eyes on the doorway. After some time, warm light spilled from the building, forming a trapezoid on the snowy ground. Emma came out alone, bundled in layers like an oversized snowball. She carried a small red box. Struggling a bit to walk through the snow, she handed it to Ethan. I baked these cookies myself. You can eat them on your way. Ethan accepted the box and was suddenly flooded with memories. Years ago, Emma loved baking, though her early attempts were awful. Eggshells in the batter, a strong eggy smell, every failure ending up in Ethan's stomach. Back then, he jokingly declared the kitchen off limits to her. Now, she could bake something presentable. Emma's sincerity was evident as she added, Thank you for your donations. Ethan nodded, knowing she was referring to the organization helping people with mental health challenges and financial difficulties. He had been quietly donating every month, keeping only a small portion for his own expenses. You're welcome, he said, his gaze lingering on her face. It's cold. You should go back inside. I probably won't be back here again. Emma smiled faintly. How could that be? One day, we'll need you for the awards ceremony. Ethan's throat tightened, but he didn't reply. As Emma turned and walked toward the door, her snow boots crunching against the ground, she stopped just before entering. She looked back and called out, Ethan. Ethan immediately turned, his heart leaping to life. He waited, hoping she'd say something more. Instead, she smiled at him and said, Happy New Year. It was a simple, ordinary blessing, no mention of health or happiness. Ethan's heart sank into silence. He stood motionless in the freezing wind as the snow swirled around him. Her words echoed in his mind, Happy New Year. And just like that, she was gone. Ethan stood there for a long time, his chest hollow, before finally turning away, stepping back into the endless snowfall.